Welcome to the conversation with CEOs for CEOs, and this is presented by Bangalore chapter of CEO Clubs of India. Today we are going to be discussing about a subject which is as ancient as the human civilization itself. You know, from starting from Egypt to Byzantine to Babylonian to courts of Hammurabi to coming back to India, our own Vedas and Yagnavalkya and Kautilya Niti. Maybe you might have already guessed what we're going to talk about today. This is about law. Law, which is a very important part of the human existence and building of the societies across the world. So to speak about that, and it's such a large subject, I don't think that we'll be able to cover a whole lot of it. So we're going to confine ourselves to the subject, which is confluence of business and law, and how both of them have an interplay and how both of them come together. So as you know that in business that, whether we're hiring a person, you have a person that's a contract law, then you have, you want to get some work done from somebody, you want to buy a business or whatever you want to do, every step that there's so much of intertwining of law and business happens. To talk about something so important in our business life, today we have an expert, and that expert is Lomesh Kiran Nidumuri. He is a partner at Cyril Amarchand and he heads dispute practice for South India, and he is also very well known and internationally famous, and he's been covered by many number of publications and journals. So please welcome Lomesh Kiran Nidumuri.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mallanna, for the kind introduction. And of course, if I have to give introduction about Mallanna, I can go on for days, but I'll keep it very, very short. Mallanna has been a very dear friend of mine for quite some time now. And in addition to being a good friend, I look at you as more like a friend, Mallanna. But in addition to being a friend, you incidentally happen to be a very successful businessman yourself, very well accomplished. He's the CEO of the Provident Housing Group. And I know the kind of transformation that you have brought to the group and the value that you've added to the entire ecosystem. As an alumnus of Harvard Business School, Mallanna is one of the successful business leaders in the industry. So Mallanna, thank you very much for having me here, and to the CEO Club as well. I'm looking forward to a very enriching conversation with you. I think you and I have spent more time deciding the topic, debating the topic, than the actual flow of the topics itself.
Yeah, I think because it's such a big subject. Subject covers a lot of things in a daily life, that particularly in business life, we always wonder that where is that this confluence is not there. That means anything that we do, the risks that we take in business, and the partnership that we forge, and the activities that we do, the services that we take from people, from contract law and your the corporate law, then you have assets and so on and so forth. So I think it will be a very interesting conversation as we go forward. So where do you think that this business and law come together?
That's a very heavy question, Mallanna. So as I pointed out earlier, this topic itself is quite intricate and quite deep. It requires a lot of analysis. But let me just speak from a very macro level on where there is an interplay between business and law. If you ask me where is the interplay, there is an interplay between business and law at every aspect. If you look at our facet of human life itself, right? So every aspect of our human life is governed by law. And that is the beauty of the subject of law itself, because it is not just one subject. It is not just about a particular provision, but it involves multidisciplinary aspects coming in together. You have sociology coming in, you have politics coming in, you have the business side coming in, you have multiple other aspects, economics coming in. Ultimately, all of that comes together in making what an ideal law should be. Insofar as what the interplay is, I think there is an interplay, as I mentioned, at every stage. But the topic of our discussion is whether that interplay, is it still waters or is it uneasy tides? And that, I think, is an intricate question, because there are a lot of still waters, because I think the harmony between law and business at a large macro level is settled, but there are still a lot of uneasy tides. especially with the advent of new age technologies that are coming in, the way businesses are being disrupted. There's a lot of disruption that's happening. The laws itself are finding it hard to keep pace with the technology and the moving times. So I think there is a lot of uneasy tides itself. There is a lot of synchronization between the two, but there is also a lot of challenges that are going to be posed.
Yeah.
But with challenges also comes opportunities for businesses. So these are all very, very interesting times. I don't know how you perceive this to be.
For us, for us the law is, is it equitable? That means two parties who are trying to enter into any kind of contract. That is, are we equitable between us? One. Second thing is, it's not about just being human beings. If I remove the two human beings from the equation, and if you're just looking at what we agreed and what we signed, that should be easily understandable, easily adoptable, and somebody can able to say that this is right, this is wrong, this is the way it was discussed, the spirit of the discussion was this. Because in business, it is spirit of what we do at that point of time. And so what happens is that the way the language is used, the way the risks on both sides, they are covered. And the second thing is, we make business decisions, and then at some point of time, we wish that the business had not happened, which means what we call the exit. How neatly the exit can happen without actually disturbing each other's tranquility. And so those are some of the most important things for us, at least for me. That's how I look at law. That is there clarity in what you and I have discussed, and have we put that into a piece of paper which is understandable to somebody when both of us are not there. So that's law for me from the basics of our business doing.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Mallanna. Ultimately, it comes down to understanding between the parties, and understanding between the parties that's legible and easily understood.
Yeah.
You will not believe it, Mallanna. So every litigation that goes to court, in all cases, in most of the cases, it is largely driven by egos of people, which is not the point I'm making, but the point really is about bad, unintelligible drafting.
Correct.
Where the courts have to sit and break their head about what the parties actually intended. And the only people who are going to make money in all of this are the lawyers.
Yeah. Glad that you accepted it.
Of course, I mean, that's a fact. You can't shy away from that. It is a fact that ultimately lawyers make money based on mistakes that clients make, but ultimately clients should not be making those mistakes.
Yeah.
It is again coming back to the principle of being penny wise, pound foolish, getting lawyers at the right time, getting them involved so that the basic understanding is all recorded in place. Ultimately, the courts have, more than the courts, the lawyers have a ball of a time just figuring out whether there's a comma here, whether there's a full stop here. The number of disputes I have handled, I mean, I can go on and on about it, about one comma here or one full stop here which has gone haywire. And we are actually trying to sit and decipher as to what the parties actually
at that point of time when the dispute comes in with a comma or this thing, somebody will go back and say, I think we are really being hair splitting the issue here. The intent is very clear when you're looking at what it is in its totality. Is it not something that the law takes the course like that?
You're right. You're absolutely right. So the court will look at the totality of the circumstances. But you always have one disgruntled party, right? One party always wants to find some loopholes. So in those loopholes, we typically find that a party will try to look at how the contract is worded, a comma missing here or a full stop missing here or a hyphen put somewhere else. Not just in a contract, let me tell you, even in legislative drafting, some of the statutes, the way they have been drafted, one full stop and one comma, and or an or, shall or a may, or in the wrong place, all makes so much of a difference.
See, this is where we go wrong, and this is where probably the system goes wrong. See, as a businessman, what is it for me? I understand the business, right? My opposite party understands the business. We are trying to protect ourselves, but what we are unaware is this, because we are unable to dissect the entire language. And of course we read, a common man reading a legal document to a lawyer reading a document is different. And how much now while talking to you, I realize how much we are dependent on you. in the sense that while we think that I've thought about the business, and I'm completely risk-free now, and I can go and argue by myself what it is if tomorrow it goes wrong, but I don't think it's true, and I think it's a kind of an eye-opener for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you think there is some kind of dependence, Mallanna.
Yeah.
That's what is going to give my
I
paycheck.
always wondered that why we pay so much money for you guys, and now I realize that we should pay more so that you don't put us in trouble by missing a comma or a full stop.
No, we'll get you into trouble and also make money to get you out of trouble. No, but jokes aside, I think that's the underlying theme. The underlying theme ultimately is that the contracting, drafting, all of that needs to be proper.
Taking this conversation a little further, right? There are businesses are in different stages of evolution, right? Some of them are startups, some of them are at a level where they can go to the next step or next level, and there are some businesses which are very well settled, and each of us have different business needs as we move forward. So the most important thing these days happening in our country at least is startup. So I was speaking to one of my friends, it's a joke, right? So I was asking him, hey, what is your son doing? He's saying, I'm thinking of opening up a startup for him. Opening up a startup for him? Before I knew that I'm going to open up a restaurant or a real estate business or whatever. Somebody wants to open a startup. It's that prevalent today about startup. So if you want to say if there is a legitimate set of youngsters who are coming up with a product or a project or something that's a startup, which they think that is going to scale up to become multi-million-dollar company someday, how should they think about the law? Where does it start? When does it start?
I think that's a great question, Mallanna. And I think this is where, again, speaking from experience, this is where startups fail and startups make fundamental mistakes. While I do understand that when you're starting off your business, you're largely looking at scaling up your business. You're looking at the big numbers, funding, happy times, everything is going well, etc., etc. But what startups and entrepreneurs, this I'm talking about with all due respect, people who have gone to the IIT and IIMs, people make fundamental mistakes when it comes to getting a lawyer at the right time or even understanding the basics of 101 of what the law is. I'll give you some instances. So I had this particular case, which was a startup, and that startup was doing very well. It was expecting a funding of 250 crores, a really good friend of mine. They had a transaction with one of the parties, and in their innocence, when there was a dispute situation, they basically sent out an email to the other side, basically saying, we'll return the money to you and we will return the checks. Now that amounts to an admission of liability under Indian law. What the other side did was, they went and took this company just before they were going to get the funding. Sure. They went to the National Company Law Tribunal. Now the law says that the moment you have an admission on email, and if the dispute is more than 1 crore, if there is an admission, you have to wind up the company. Pretty much it goes into insolvency. So an insolvency resolution professional comes in and takes over everything. These guys are good friends of mine, really good entrepreneurs, expecting 150 crores. In their innocence, they sent this email out, whereas actually there was a dispute. They should have documented it better. They made a big mistake and the company actually went into insolvency. Then we had to file an appeal to get the whole thing set aside. This is one example I can give you just out of innocence that happens. The second thing is lack of proper documentation. When you're starting a business, again in that enthusiasm of doing your business, you don't think about your structures. You don't think about what processes you need to keep in place for your business to do well. I know of situations, live disputes that I've handled, basically where one of them helped somebody else start a particular product. Let's assume that it's my product, right? I come up with 99% of the concept and designs. Yeah. You come to me, you meet me over coffee, and you just discuss some things with me. And I want to later launch this product into the market. You go to court and get an injunction order as against me, saying that, hey, I'm also a co-promoter. I also invested in this. I am also one of the people who thought about the concept and designs, and injunction orders were actually given. So in a dispute like this, I had to go back to the emails right from the times when they said, let's meet for coffee. Even those emails were produced in court to show the nature of conversations that happened much later, to produce a sequence of evidence, basically to show that that person had no interest at all. But ultimately, the business of this promoter suffered to a large extent because he lost that early mover advantage of 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, let's say that they came together. Let's say that all these things little prior to the starting of the company itself. Let's say this whole discussion in a coffee shop and so on. So if they go and register a company and they decide that they want to go forward, so I get what you're saying is a lawyer should be available with them on day one, about structuring their partnership, and because usually startup is from younger people, well, mostly, and their emotional context of the things that everybody thinks that what they are coming up with is going to be the next unicorn, and maybe they will need help in structuring their business. Who is what? Fully be aware that three or four of us have come together, and one of us may exit. When they are going to exit, what is that exit program? Some of us may have a situation where they cannot work any further. They want a job, so they want to quit. What you're saying is that it should be well thought through, and from the day one they need professional help. So and also that is one to start with and one to structure and all those things. And as we move forward, this fundraising and things like that happen, which means that there is another party, another financial institution that is coming in. What kind of important aspects that people should remember, particularly when they are raising funds into a startup company?
Yeah, of course, I'm not a subject matter expert insofar as funding is concerned, but again, speaking from a very broad and macro level, I think one of the things that a funder would look at, of course, in addition to the product being good, working with the promoters, all of that being good, is also having those structures in place.
Sure.
To see how are the rights inter se promoters, how are they documented inside?
Correct.
What are the reps and warranties in that?
Correct.
To make sure that the company otherwise is kosher in terms of compliances.
Correct.
A lot of times startups, and particularly with younger entrepreneurs, they may not pay much attention even to the compliance part of it.
Sure.
And that is when the funding gets hit, because a lot of funders, they're bound by various regulations, and they'll want to make sure that the company in which they put money into has all the compliances in place. So again, comes back to your point, Mallanna, that when you're starting it off itself, it's better to have that kind of a help. As I pointed out earlier, it's like, when a promoter is starting a new business, it's like a marriage, right?
Sure.
At the time of marriage, you're not going to think about divorce.
Correct.
And nobody is going to think
But
about
that's what
disputes.
I was
Oh, this will happen. Oh, that will happen. Oh, you're the bad guy talking about all of this. Of course not. I mean, nobody is talking about only the divorce part of it. Marriage also is great. Build the business, build it well, but build it with the right structures and processes, so that tomorrow you're not penny wise, pound foolish, and it comes back to bite you.
It's just not only the legal and the compliance part of it, with the taxes, with managing the taxes and whatever that they're supposed to do, the returns and so on and so forth. And these are all very, very important for youngsters to look at it when they are getting into a startup venture. Now we come to the most important part of the discussion, which is your expertise, which is litigation, arbitration, and so on and so forth. First, we'll talk at a very fundamental level. Take one case, any case that you like, and there was a contract that was entered between the two companies. So an agreement which was entered, registered, and everything is done, right? But when we go through inside of the document, and how that the spirit of that agreement is not honored by one or both parties, and how they ended up with litigation, or what were the lacunas in the documentation. For example, arbitration clause was not there, exit clause was not there, or something. So just give us, it will be very interesting to know, because we don't, as businessmen, we always think that we are, at least we pretend. We pretend to be the smartest people.
So do we, Mallanna. And let me give you a secret.
In this pretentious world. So tell me, how do you, give me some examples of what you think that went wrong or right in cases like that.
I can give you several, but let me think of 2 or 3 examples, if you bear with me. There was this one case for a multinational company, a really large multinational company. I cannot name that company. They had a dispute with one of the former directors who left and joined a competitor. So you mentioned arbitration clause, right? So we were looking at the arbitration clause, and you will not believe it, Mallanna. It was a classic case of a bad cut copy job.
Uh-huh.
So somebody has cut copied something from one of the earlier agreements, put it into this, and you can clearly make out that these are just portions which are dragged from the other document and put it into this, because together it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Now the question was whether you file a suit for injunction, or whether you go before the arbitrator. Before arbitrator, you can go to the court under Section 9 of the Arbitration Act and ask for interim release. The question was whether you do that. Now mind you, this person has already joined the competitor,
Okay.
and it is our case that certain confidential data was also taken.
Okay.
So matter is of grave urgency. Now because of such bad drafting, and honestly for the love of God, we couldn't understand why there should be such a mistake in the first place. There were senior advocates on the both sides. Both of us got an intellectual high, arguing that this comma should be read as full stop, this should be read as so and so. But ultimately, the court ruled in a particular way, but it took 3 months just on this. By then, the whole effect of it is gone, because he's already joined the competitor. The company's also lost interest, saying, forget it, let's just write it off. This is one example. The other example I can give you of bad drafting, which actually inured to the benefit of one of my clients. He worked as one of the managers of a particular unit in a particular restaurant, which was in a mall. Now the contract was drafted so badly, which again was inured to my benefit because I had to interpret the clause. We were able to get an injunction order restraining not only the company where he was employed, but to get an injunction order stopping 5,000 crores investment into that particular mall.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because of just bad drafting by the other side. I don't want to name the firm which was on the other side, but the firm had not looked into and thought through certain provisions. It was complete mayhem. So after I got the ex parte injunction, my client asked me, what are the chances of me getting an ex parte injunction order? I said less than 1%. And we got the ex parte injunction. So the notice went to the other side. And he said, what are the chances of getting an injunction order now? I said less than 0.1%, but we still got the injunction order. But it just so happened that we were able to leverage the bad drafting insofar as this is concerned. This is point number 2. And this person finally got disillusioned with the Indian system. He's left India.
Lomesh, in this case that what you're talking about, this gentleman's experience, is it the similar experience across the world? The legal systems are complicated and it takes time and all of that, or is it just only in India this happens?
So in India we have, of course, very, very peculiar challenges which are unique to us and which is not there in most other jurisdictions. But having said that, I think every jurisdiction presents challenges. There are few legal systems in the world which are very, very advanced.
Okay.
I can give you examples of that. If you look at Singapore, for instance,
Yeah.
it is a benchmark of quality.
Yeah.
It is a benchmark of excellence,
Yeah.
where you can be rest assured that if there is a dispute,
Yeah.
at least there will be integrity of the process. There is no
Yeah.
question on that. Independence, no question on that.
Yeah.
Fairness, no question on that.
Yeah.
And lastly, competence.
Sure.
Again, no question on that. But if you bring about all of this, and this is what businesses look for, right?
Yeah, correct.
You're looking for this kind of a process
Correct.
and sanctity in the legal process,
Correct.
so that the businesses can be rest assured that even if there is a dispute,
Correct.
there is going to be some end at sight.
Correct.
But in the Indian context, again, India is a very, very large country, right? So within India also, there are pockets of jurisdictions where things are going fairly well.
Okay.
For instance, if you look at Delhi,
Yeah.
anything, if you want an injunction order from the Delhi High Court, you can get it within a matter of 24 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
And likewise, the Bangalore Commercial Court also. Again, it depends on your luck.
Yeah.
As I say, litigation is like a Russian roulette.
Okay.
It's like you never know which click is
Yeah.
going to get a bullet to your head.
Sure.
Right? So and they say every litigation has its own jataka.
Yeah.
Everything has its own end.
Yeah.
Everything is predestined. I mean, the more you litigate, I think you become a philosopher over a period of time.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, there are pockets of good people. We have excellent judges. Again, spread across a large jurisdiction. If you look at Bangalore itself, we have some fantastic judges.
Okay.
I've had some great experiences.
Perfect.
But at the same time, I've had terrible experiences as well. Examples I can give you, where there was a theft of data, which was taken from the employer
Yeah.
and given to a competitor. I had to get an injunction order from the Bangalore Civil Court. I had to explain to the judge what a hard drive is.
Oh my God.
I had to explain to the judge what a backup is.
Yeah.
I had to explain to the judge starting from what you need to click on the computer.
Yeah.
Take him through all those steps, then you can only imagine my fate.
Yeah. We'll take it as one off. I think this could be one extreme example, I would think.
Very hard to say that, Mallanna, because again it's a hit or a miss, right? So if you're talking India largely in general, you have different jurisdictions. You have some of the lower courts where judges don't understand a lot of things other than partition suits and check bounce cases or small money recovery suits. They will not understand anything else. If you're talking about sophisticated businesses, of course they will not go to the rural areas. But I'm just saying, even if you're looking at tier 2 cities and certain tier 1 cities also, if it comes up before a wrong judge, there ends the matter.
So you're speaking about Singapore. No wonder it's becoming the arbitration capital. Particularly in our business, most of the private equity money comes from outside the country. And in a small country, doing that kind of phenomenal work, with the kind of system that they've developed is incredible.
And just on that, Mallanna, the incredible thing about Singapore's growth, you mentioned Singapore International Arbitration Center, right? So the SISC, the maximum number of cases comes from India. India is the top 3 countries which litigates in Singapore, and especially the SISC. And the number one reason for that? Our inefficiencies.
Okay.
It is our inefficiencies that contributes to export of legal services to Singapore. Can you imagine? I mean, you may have absolutely no nexus with India, but still a person who is investing into India, especially if it's a foreign investor, I'm sure you're speaking from experience as well, that they all insist on Singapore. And now Dubai is also picking up. The Dubai International Financial Center and the courts there and the Dubai International Arbitration Center are taking huge steps in ensuring that there is some kind of sanctity to contracts.
See, talking about the efficiencies of the courts, right? One of the things that challenges, particularly in my business, that we see is this inheritance law, where you have done, the diligence to the best of your abilities. Best of the lawyers would have looked at it, and some third party crops up from somewhere. Some kind of relationship, the blood relationship will come up. And we know that the people are lying. We know that people are unethical and they are demanding some money. And then you are always in a conundrum whether to settle them or to take them to the court. So we do not succumb, so we take them to the court. The question here is very simple, right? It takes a long time for that to get resolved. See, now that the whole idea is, let's say it's a 1 crore rupee settlement and there is 100 crore rupees of total asset is locked in, or the business is not progressing. See, the losses because of that, the anxieties because of that, and I can also tell you that this will also have a telling effect on the society and the progress and the economy itself. Is there anybody has done any kind of study on, because that the courts have become slower in resolving those disputes or coming up with some kind of resolutions quickly, what kind of losses a country must be facing?
I'm sure there have been reports, and there are multiple reports that have come. I think our country is largely cognizant to the fact that there are delays, and that delays also makes ease of doing business in India, right? Everyone talks about ease of doing business. It's a very, very sexy word. Everyone talks about it. But why is it that we are not improving? So we are 70, 75, we have probably moved up 25 slots. But why is it that we have not in the top 20?
Is it the number of judges, or it is just the system itself is like that?
I think it's a combination of everything, to be honest. So it's we have probably one of the worst judge to population ratio in the world. Our judges are overburdened. There are a lot of honest judges who want to do work. If you look at the schedule of a High Court judge or a Supreme Court judge, Mallanna, you would be shocked, because they have absolutely no free time. They're working all the time. And they have 100 matters in one day which they need to decide. Whereas, by contrast, a Singapore High Court decides about 100 to 150 matters in a year.
Oh my God.
So they have the luxury of going through the petition, going through the papers, drafting a beautiful order. Likewise, you look at the UK Supreme Court or the US Supreme Court, the numbers are less than 100.
So if that is the case, then I would say that Indian judges are doing extremely well, considering that the amount of time they get to really understand the case and really come up with the solution or the resolution for those kind of things. Yes, I just want to go to the next level, right? How do we bring that burden on the court systems a little lower? It's basically what I am talking about is the values of the society. You know, the society has to become better in terms of understanding equality of other people and how to be equitable in business cases, in business settings. And I think most of the things can be resolved in that. Most of the things can be thought through with the spirit. With what spirit did we enter into this agreement? Do you think that Indian value system at this point of time, it's because we are growing, we are aspirational, is little lower compared to others? Is that maybe it's a little bit outside the legal thing that we are asking about, a little bit about human experience or the human greed and aspirations? And
I think the value system and human greed, I think this has been a disease that spread across the world. It's not a problem only with India. But again, there are certain exceptions to this rule. There are certain jurisdictions which I particularly admire. For instance, the first example that comes to me is Japan. Right? If you look at Japan, once there is a contract, they will honor the contract no matter what.
Correct.
And even if the matter goes into some kind of a dispute, 95% of the cases are settled just by shake of hands, discussions, and that's the end of it. The number of lawyers who get registered in Japan is one of the lowest in the world, because they see no value add for that many lawyers to come into the system, as opposed to an American system or an Indian system where you can pretty much sue for everything. The other example I want to give you is the laws, the way they're structured in the UAE and the Middle East, right? In the UAE, the moment you sign a contract, it is a word of honor.
Sure.
The moment it is a word of honor, you have to live by it. There is no way you can back out from the word that you've given. It is sacrosanct.
Sure.
It is a word of God. That's the way they look at it. So likewise, even in your industry, for instance, if it is real estate sector, which is in Dubai, there are strict laws, because the moment you say that I will give possession by so and so date, barring few exceptions where it exceeds by few months, it is taken that the builder has given a promise to the people and to the government that they will stick by it. So you live and die by the sword, and that is how the laws are also framed. Whereas in India, it tends to be a little lax. And to answer one of the earlier things that you mentioned, one of the problems with the Indian system also is that you don't have a principle where you can get penalized for wrong prosecution. Like in the US, for instance, if you file a false case against somebody, you can get penalized for it. In India, it's like taking
even
a stone.
Governments get sued there.
Yes,
Even
exactly.
The prosecution gets sued there.
Governments get prosecuted. India also governments get prosecuted. But in India, it's like this. It's like taking a stone, and you know how you throw the stone on the water, you see how many ripples it makes? In India, it's like, it's okay, just throw the stone. We'll see how many ripples it makes. If it makes ripples, good. If it doesn't make a ripple, okay, it'll just go down. That's it. You take a chance with the system. And what happens with that? Because of the, as you said, the value system. If this is the value system that you bring in, because there are no repercussions for it. Because human behavior, at the end of the day, I believe, has to be regulated to an extent. Otherwise, we would all live in a society where there are no laws at all. So when you regulate human conduct, and when you say that there will be consequences for you to file a wrong case against somebody, people will think twice. Now, if you look at UAE also, why is it that people follow lane discipline? The reason is huge fines. You get 2 or 3 fines, you will be deported from the country. Likewise, Singapore, you know, they respect your democracy. They will respect your right to speech, your freedoms. Everything is respected. But the moment you mess with the law, you have lashing, which is one of the forms of punishment. And that lashing is not an ordinary cane. It's a lashing where your skin pretty much peels out.
Maybe that's the kind of an extreme side of the
of course.
Second, I mean, repercussions. We're talking about repercussions, right? It's very important for people to know there are repercussions of not following the law.
Yes, exactly.
The repercussions for not being ethical.
Yes.
Right? It's fantastic. And maybe they've taken it to another level.
Yes, of course. That's right.
And then I think as a democratic country, and where human rights and other things are very important for us. But at the same time, there is no dispute in what you're saying, that People cannot take that independence for granted and do whatever you want and harm the other people.
Yes.
Right? I mean, we've spoken about the society and the value system and things like that. Let's get a little personal now. How much do you enjoy your profession?
I think I thoroughly enjoy it.
You think that you were born to be a lawyer?
I don't know if I was born to be a lawyer. I thought I was talented to do a lot of other things, but as I grew up, I realized I had zero talents in them.
Okay.
But I think the practice of law is a very beautiful experience. It's like a game of chess.
Sure.
I don't think in any other profession you have to deal with an adversary on the other side.
Yeah.
Where you have to deal with the psychology of the whole litigation also, because you have to understand what is playing in the mind of the other side.
Correct.
And what is it that they are going to argue before a court or an arbitral tribunal.
Yeah.
What is the research that they're going to do, what is the pleading that they're going to do, and be one step ahead of that.
Sure.
This is one aspect of it. The second aspect is the most important, the judge or an arbitrator.
Yeah.
He or she is a human being at the end of the day.
Correct.
What is going to sway the judge at that particular point of time? You may come up with a script, but when you go there, it's completely like plan C, plan D, which you have not even thought about. Suddenly it plays out.
Yeah.
But your ability to be quick on the feet, your ability to read the law, read the facts, find those nuances of it where you're able to present it, while at the same time being completely ethical to the other side, to the court and to the system. I think that's the beauty of the profession. I don't think any other profession brings all these facets into light as much as the legal profession.
The passion says everything,
Yeah.
right? I am pretty sure that you will want to be a lawyer. Or even if you picked up later in your life, that it's become really part of you and who you are. It's amazing. It's amazing to see that passion. What do you think? It's in the society upkeep and society regulation and things like that. This is a hugely contributing factor. Is proper law being practiced in a country, in a society, and I think that contribution from the lawyers is incredible, and I believe that otherwise if I go back and look at the human civilization itself, that I think if we did not have rules, regulation and law, we wouldn't be no different than animals, I think. And it's part of us, right? It's amazing.
That's true. I think that's a whole new dimension to sociology itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you have theories which say should there be laws at all,
Correct.
And you have other theories which say that it has to be fully regulated.
Yeah.
And the question is also is on a larger macro level is, as human beings, are we really that nice?
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's a
Or are we just pretending to be so nice where you're complying with the thing? That's another question which you
or we are nice because there is law.
Because there is law, exactly. But I think at the end of the day, the ethos is still the same. Yeah. But let me ask you the same question back to you, Mallanna.
Yeah.
So let me again, a very personal question to you.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? Your journey as a business leader, how do you view that?
Frankly, the business does not come to me naturally. If you really ask me that what would have been your best profession, probably I should have been a professor somewhere. I should have been a lecturer, professor working in a university, teaching things. And
I can see that.
Particularly about who we are as human beings and the psychology and this and that, I would have done a better job. But in the meantime, on my way from being an engineer and becoming a business professional, it's been a great transformation, and I believe that this is hugely contributing to the society. The businesses contribute to society. Without economy, where is this thing? Without business, where is economy? Right? And particularly in the business that I am in, I keep saying this one. People are making decision to buy a home from us on the basis of the story that we are going to tell them. And the painting that we show them and the model that we show them and what we are going to do. They are making a decision to buy a home. If you're buying a phone, then you're touching, you're feeling. You're buying a car, then you're touching, feeling, driving, test driving and whatnot. Here is something that the biggest purchase of their life, from all that they've earned in their life and also what they're going to earn in future. All of them is being bet on the story that we tell. And that humbles me, actually. That humbles me. That is the kind of responsibility we have to those people particularly they are so young, husband and wife with one or two children, and they're in 30s and 40s, and they have so much life to live, and now they're coming in. So for me, that's the humbling experience, and I love to, even I don't know whether while I say that I wanted to be a professor or whatever it may be, but maybe God had a different thing for me, and this is perfectly suits me, and I love being in business. It's a good experience so far in life.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, Mallanna. I think the common thread is, I think both of us value integrity and ethics to a very large extent. I think that's the fundamental.
I don't know, because we can't be self-judging, but at the same time, our growth suggests that, 600 rupees per month, site engineer to become whatever I've become, and it's good. It's probably, that's the recognition and that's the reward that happens, right? In the short run, you may look at it and say, hey, it could have been even better and whatnot, right? But, it's good, it's perfect.
Fantastic.
So the last thing is to bring this one to a kind of a closure. Few words about the business and law coming confluence. Maybe I'll take the first shot. In my opinion, they're inseparable.
Yeah.
As you said that we don't know, human beings would be nice without rules and regulations and laws. We need some framework. Law sets up the framework, and we need some regulation to see that we follow the law, and we need prosecution when we don't follow the law, and so that people who are dependent on our business derive the maximum output, that outcome that they're supposed to get from our businesses. So in my opinion, they're so intertwined. As professionals, we can't become lawyers, we can't become businessmen, engineers in all in one. But respect for law, respect for looking at things from the legal perspective is very important, and that's from a business perspective. I'm saying whatever you want to say in your closing remarks with regards to law.
Yeah, sure. I fully agree with you, Mallanna. I think the times that we are living in, these are very exciting times, right?
Yeah.
So India is also at a very beautiful cusp of exploding into something really large. And if it doesn't work in India's favor, it's India to blame and all of us to blame for it. It's got to be a beautiful journey for the country in terms of what it entails. And that is where I think this topic becomes very important. This confluence of law and business in India's journey and how it is going to charter its course for the future. Keeping in mind that law should only be a supervening thing. It should not be something, as you said, that compels people to do certain things. But it should largely be where businesses are being run, just like businesses should be. And law should step in only when things go wrong. And otherwise, business should just facilitate itself and do really well. But I cannot emphasize less that while doing all of this, in this great journey of this confluence of law and business, while there will be uneasy tides because of the advent of technologies, disruption to businesses, the gig economy, a lot of other things that are going to change, and it's always going to be unsettled waters in that sense. But these are creases on your shirt that can always be ironed out. These are not creases that can never be ironed out. These can always be ironed out. But one fabric that needs to remain true is ethics and integrity. And I think while all of this is happening, I think it's very, very important that India scales up, keeping the core values in mind, and it's only going to be bright and sunny going forward.
Words of wisdom, Lomesh. I can tell you that I really enjoyed speaking with you. I hope people who are going to be watching this one are going to derive some value out of this one, that whatever we have done. And thank you very much that we met and we spoke.
Thank you so much, Mallanna, for this opportunity. I had a lovely time interacting with you, and we should take this conversation outside and probably have a few more beers now.
Yeah, sure, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you.